Okay. Okay, the microphone's working. So today I am just going to cover an exercise that is part of the process for creating and building. And I think this is listed as part 8. If you're following along, it's page 296. We're going to talk about how to begin to articulate the vision in a way that you can call people in. And the reason for this is that what you're going to create and build, you are going to ideate, you are going to find this connection to yeah, and so as we've covered in the previous hubs, there's the inquiry and reception, which is like, what are the questions that have a lot, or the question that has a lot of angst and energy, like that's a question that has like an ache for resolution. Because like that ache is really important. Like if it's kind of one of those things like I'd like to be rich, it just the ache, unless it's there. If it's a desire that doesn't have any sense that it lacks resolution, if it's just this thing, it's like, well, if I could have this, everything would be better. It doesn't have the quality that's going to see itself all the way through the funnel. And one of the things is that basing a creating and building process off of something that is not emanating from you, is not coming from your own inquiry. Like part of the thing of the seventh hub inquiry is that it is like it's really connected to who and what you are, like something that's very integral to what you are. So there's a feeling that comes with it. Like there's a feeling, and you know it, where you're like, I really want to know what the answer to this is. I don't know what the answer is. And the thing is that when our inquiries, or when the thing is that we want to create is not aligned with that particular quality, it can actually contribute to a false sense of like lacking power or willpower, or it's like, oh, I guess I don't have the power to it's like I want this and I don't follow through with it, and I'm questioning whether you want it, because it's like there's yeah. And the thing is it's like maybe not the it, but the sort of connecting to the why and the questioning and the inquiry around it is investigating that further. So, with that being said, the process as we've covered so far, it's like the inquiry process as covered in previous sessions, receptivity, working with the limiting beliefs that start to kick up, and then it's crystallizing. Like it's beginning to allow the reception of the answers to your questions start to kind of come through, and the synchronicities to arise and point you in the right direction, and more clarity to come through. And in that, to be starting to find out who you are in relation to what this is. And in a way, it's almost like, per what I was just talking about, it's like connecting this aspect of what is integrally part of who and what you are to why this is so angsty. Like there's a resolution that has to do with your own transformation that exists within, that is encapsulated within this creation. So in the fifth hub, where we are right now, what we're doing is we're beginning to bridge this very sort of ephemeral, like spacious, unground, like the antithesis of grounded state, with like where we're starting to cross the bridge into being able to bring this into the world. And so the way we do that is we, in this process, is finding words. so we can talk to people. And for me, with Parinama in particular, this has been a very long process. The fifth hub has been where it's really been, where there's really been a stoppage in my own experience with this, because for reasons I hadn't understood previously, now I understand better. I won't get into here. But we are in the process of, so the first is like telling your story. We did as an exercise. The next is the journaling exercises for preparing and exploring feedback. I recommend watching that session. Very important. That's a place where a lot of stoppage can happen in this process, where where it starts to, like, it's a form of resistance that can be really potent. And now we're at the elevator pitch. So the elevator pitch is where we develop a succinct way to portray ourselves to people, because in the next hub, we're going to start to enroll people. And part of what we have to do, if we want our vision to expand into the world, is we have to make it easy for people to understand what the vision is. So if we are still in this like seventh, sixth hub thing, where it's like this sort of vision that's crystallizing, and that we present that to people, the ability for them to communicate that to others is very limited. And so part of the reason that's important is that there's this calling in of the right people to support what you're creating and building. And part of that is that they need to resonate with what you're trying to do, like and there needs to be some level of understanding, kind of the notion of what is coming together, so that they can feel inspired and connected to it. So yeah. And one side note that I'll make in terms of my own process, as it relates to Parinama, not to many other things actually, to Parinama, is that in this particular case, the direction that I was trying to take this was wrong, and or it was like out of its integrity, so it just blocked. And so a lot of this couldn't really, this part of this creation process couldn't really happen, specifically because it is how I've come to understand it, is because I was like steering too far into a wrong direction of like turning this into of some version of this being a consumer product, which it is not. Which it is not. It has a like a significantly wider aperture in terms of its like reach, but it's not a consumer product. This is not meant to be like exist in an ecosystem of like monetization and commerce, even though that, I mean, that can exist with this, but is not as a primary, secondary, or even tertiary move, which is wild. I mean, it can come through, but not as like a structural component of how this is coming into existence in the world and reaching other people. So let's talk about elevator pitch. So this should be under 30 seconds and should generate the intrigue needed to open the doors to more substantive conversation. So there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 components to it. And this definitely comes from, my experience of building sales organizations and building messaging in sales organizations. So the first is, this is who I am. And the order is title, company, name. So I'm title of project. My name is fill in the blank. So this would be, in this case, I am the, founder, or I am the creator, I am the author, or I could say I'm the author, founder, creator of the Parinama method. My name is Katie Bickford. And so, yes, your name comes last. So, example, I'm the CEO and founder of High End Egyptian. My name is Adia. So, your title or position helps anchor the introduction. It's the piece of information most familiar to them, and giving your name at the end helps people use and remember it. So, it's kind of like, think about in chapter 6 when we're talking about status positioning. One of the first things a person is trying to establish subconsciously, for the most part, is your status relative to them. So, and like who you are and why they should pay attention to you. So it's kind of like, this is my role relative to what I'm doing, and this is the name of my company or my project. And the reason for this is like it's an establishment, like you're establishing something. Versus if you're just like, you give them a name, and by the way, they're not going to really remember the name when it's said in general before a bunch of other information that they're gonna be unpacking and making sense of. So, the ordering of this has a very, like, specific reasoning, and it's uncomfortable because it's backwards. It's backwards of how people want to introduce themselves, because it's a convention. Say, "Hi, I'm Katie, I'm the blah, blah, blah." And one of the other things is, you are trying to be a little like, there is a bit of a disruption in terms of being memorable with people. So it's intentional, and it's very effective if you can get into a comfortable zone with it. It's like, you have to practice it, because it's like not natural, or it's actually not natural. It's like not the typical. It's not typical. So, and the next is, this is what I do. So ideally, one or two sentences, such as, we're making low cost, high end fashions with fabrics from factories on the Nile using designs recovered from Nefertiti's tomb. So my example that I use in the book is, it's a through line here. But the idea here is that it's like, you're not working this out. You're not workshopping your message. And and I'll speak specifically to Parinama, which is that, my lack of clarity with what this is was causing me to be really unclear, and that felt right at the time. And now that I'm becoming increasingly clear about what this is, at least in my relationship to it, this is becoming easier. Yeah. And the next is, this is who it's for. So what comes next? And I might read that now. We'll see. Actually, I think I might. I think that might happen. Um, yeah, I actually might do it, because it's gonna make sense here. So the designs flatter all body types, and professional women tell us they feel more confident in the workplace knowing they're wearing royal garments. Who is it for? So the idea is like, this is who I am. This is what we do, and this is who we do it for. Once again, when the stuff is left unsaid, this goes back to the original intent here, which is that we're trying to connect, and so that people won't do the work for you. And if they do the work, actually they will do the work, but it'll be like in tune with their notion, which initially can feel like a relief. This happens a lot in companies where customers will be like, "Oh yeah, no, I know what this is for." And it's like, "Ooh," like it feels good because you're like, "Oh good, you like it and you want to use it." But it can be a really limited use case. And people will have their idea anyway. But the point is that you want to get your you want to get your you want to like get your directionality inserted into the creation and the notion of what you're doing. So the next is, this is how I do it. So explain the central tenet of your project in one or two sentences with a compelling differentiator or a surprising positive fact. Example: we source low and no cost fabric remnants that factories pay us to take away, and we turn them into high-end clothing. Now, granted, I'm creating a story that's like naturally like great, but you can find this in anything. Believe me, you can find this in anything. And I'm using a very but pay attention to like this notion that it's like this surprising thing of like, look, there's some notes here. It's like we're sourcing, low cost fabric remnants that factories pay us to take away, and then we turn them into high end clothing. So it's like, wow, right? Like you're looking for that quality in what you're doing. I'm gonna actually be working on this today. It's really, I'm looking at this and I'm in the position right now to really be like actually shifting this for Parinama. Finally, finally. And then wait for it. Just stop talking. A great elevator pitch leaves the listener wanting more and should be enticing, but not a complete explanation. A common error is mistaking a pitch as an opportunity to educate when the purpose is to spark intrigue. And this is something I will tell you, full disclosure, in the beginning stages is so hard because it's like there can be like the fear that people are going to be kind of like impatient with you, or the way they ask questions is going to be read as a criticism when it's like, and well, how do you do that? And people go, "Oh, I don't want somebody to ask me how do I do that." But like they're telling you what they want to know. And that's good. That's engagement. They're activated. The worst thing, people used to say, "I could never do sales because of all the rejection." It's like, no, it's all the indifference. And this is sales. Sales is just basically like activating people to pay attention to you, at least in the initial stage of it. So I'm going to read the next section. Which is, so what? So why does it matter? The things people find important help them in ways they find meaningful. So the things people find important help them in ways they find meaningful. So to most people, it won't matter that you're living your dream or expressing your purpose. They want to know how you can help them live their dreams, how you can solve their problems. In this message testing method, we ask, so what? Or more diplomatically, why does this matter? So until we can uncover a specific understanding of how what we do matters to people in ways they find meaningful. So, okay, it wasn't read very well. Being told, "I hate cold weather," is a general statement that could relate to selling mittens or buying Florida real estate. The more specific you can get about how hating cold weather affects the person's life, the more likely you are to find your value proposition. For example, if someone states, "Poor circulation in my hands in the colder months makes doing things I enjoy difficult," ask, "Can you help me understand why this matters for you?" The response could be, "I tend not to go outside in the winter, which leads to me feeling lethargic." This process can continue by asking for specific examples. Like, "Can you tell me a little bit more about that? How does being lethargic impact you?" This is how to gather valuable insights. So look for the stories with specifics and find the shared themes that keep coming up in your discovery conversation. So this is another thing I should mention is that this requires really a significant amount of like intestinal fortitude to do because it's initially like they're kind of crusty. It's not polished. Like it's literally like you're creating something in this, which, like for some folks are like, oh my God, it's already hard enough. It's like, no, this is actually helps make it easy because when you call in and you activate and energize the right people, their excitement, their interest, their work helps make something happen. You attract more talented people. You attract um, people that are in alignment. So the work that goes into doing this is kind of like the stitch in time saves nine. It's like if to skip this type of step because this is really hard work and it's confronting because, people be confused and not know what you're saying, and that might make you feel bad. But if instead of feeling bad, you go, "Oh, okay, how can I do this better?" And this is part of how we transform through this process of creation, is this very process. So this all takes time, and when you invest in the process of clarifying your vision, you become more secure as you get better at weathering challenging interactions. Your ability to withstand criticism and to hear the truth in feedback is essential for long-term success. It's an ability that takes time to develop, even if you choose not to incorporate feedback. It's vital to be aware of other perspectives. The input will only become more intense as the sphere of your influence widens. So consider this training part of the Fibonacci spiral pattern of life. See chapter 9 and 10, with things presenting with increasing difficulty as you continue to evolve and grow. If you're feeling cross currents and limiting beliefs, this stage is particularly hard. Feedback can feel like criticism, and some of it will be. It's okay. This is part of the transformation process. If you keep working on your cross currents, you will tolerate and ultimately even enjoy this. Always try to keep in mind that there will never be a person other than you who can determine your fate. There's no one you need more than yourself. So even if people you wanted for your team aren't on board, keep the faith. The time isn't right yet, which means that the right people are out there and waiting for you to find them. Mm. I think there's like also a dichotomy there, which is like you simultaneously don't need anyone and you need everyone. Like it's like the to mistake that as rugged individualism is like I can see how that could be pulled from that. And it's actually like to me the thing is like it actually has more to do with like the clarity of the transmission of the signal so that the right ears for what you're doing are gonna like pick up on it. Because like this goes back to like a broad message activates nobody. Like they're like or activate, it actually it's not activates. It activates a lot of people at a low level of energy. So if anything, it's like part of what we're trying to do is create some of the revulsion, like repulsion, like people going away because it's like clearing space. And like the people that go, that's it, that's it. I've been waiting for something like this. And you will, it's happening right now because I'm doing this, is that, when, messages that I've previously like given, which are very like kind of more milk toast and broad, I'm not doing anymore. So I'm practicing my messaging. And I'm just watching how it's like this principle really plays out. One example I want to give of this, I actually in my professional life use this example a lot, is there's a company that I was I was building out the sales organization for a company, and I went and I had meetings. It was a company that had to install a technology in like large commercial real estate buildings and to provide a service for the tenants in tenants, like people lived like buildings. I'm not finding the commercial word for it right now in my head. But anyway, like one of the first meetings I went to, I just said, "Listen," I took it like after I gave the pitch, like the kind of elevator pitch, this style, said, "Be honest, what's the first thing that comes to mind?" And this was someone who was in charge of like, hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars of real estate assets, billions probably. Um, and I just said, "Be honest," just right out of the blue, quickly. I said, "Be honest, what's the first thing that comes to mind?" And he goes, "Are you gonna fuck up my buildings?" And in a thing where you're looking to just hear people tell you this, like, "That sounds wonderful." Like, if you're like, "I really want people to say that's this really smart idea," or "That's great, I wanna do that." And if you don't hear that, it's discouraging. It's, like, that's a limitation because that comment, that honesty of that comment was something that I was able to use for how we could build the success of our organization and realizing, like, that's what they actually care about. If I'd been like, "We'll provide a wonderful service and da ba da ba da," but for the people that I was working with directly, the people that own the assets, it's like their care wasn't, like their first thing was like, "I've got hundreds of millions of dollars of assets. I'm worried that you're about the liability of this." And so to not address the liability and just keep talking about how wonderful this thing is not actually talking to what's on the person's mind. And so the idea of them going, "This is wonderful. Oh my gosh, isn't that great?" There's no emotion there, and they're just kind of giving you platitudes. So what you really want is the thing that's like, "This is what's on my mind." And think about this yourself. And somebody proposes something to you and you're like, "I don't really want to tell them because it seems kind of rude to say like what I'm actually concerned about. So I'm just going to say, yeah, no, that sounds great. I'll be in touch." But the thing is, you want that thing. You want to be able to address the concern. Because the thing is like that, especially when you talk about the ascending current here, like in of self-actualization, of realizing that criticism becomes something that we read based on our history. Like that, like we take criticism like with a sort of historical context in terms of its intent. So the ability to weather criticism or hear it out or be interested and curious about it, or critical or something that just is not necessarily like a, open reception. That's kind of like, "I'm meeting this with my concerns. Will you hear them out?" kind of thing. Um, the importance of that in the creation of what you're building is to be able to hear how people respond to it without making them feel bad and even being grateful. So I'm going to do this exercise myself. I'm going to do it. So I'm going to bounce off here. And I hope you will too. So once again, it's at page 296 if you're following along in the book here. Boop Parinama Method. Check out the website. I've made some updates to it. theparinamamethod.com. And once again, it's like, this is who I am. This is what I do. This is who it's for. This is how I do it. And then wait for it. Tell a good story, get people interested, and also be ready because there are people that won't be interested. And one other note I'll put on there is like your idea of who's supposed to be interested and who isn't. Um, also can lead to some, like, heartburn, but really trust in this kind of very nuanced dynamic process, which is that you're either not getting it across effectively so that they understand you, or they just aren't the right people, and you need to, like, continue the process um, of fine-tuning your message to really align with the integrity of what you're doing and keep going, keep talking to people, because this and I'm doing this right now, um, is like practice makes perfect. Like, right now you wanna start finding, relatively receptive people and increasing the reach outside of that to practice this with. And you can even say, "Look, I'm working on this thing. Let me run something by you. Let me see how this lands. What do you think? Okay? I'm doing this, it's like I'm the founder of this thing. Hi, I'm Katie. Like, this is what we're doing. We're trying to create this thing, or I'm trying to build this thing, or I'm trying to paint these things. I'm trying to do this thing. And I want this to be in homes with people who are blah, 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 or I want this to be done and used by people who are really interested in this or whatever." And you say, "And this is how I see us doing this. Like, we're going to, like," and you have your idea. You're like, "Look, we're gonna kinda like the way I see it right now is in like leaving it open where it's like we're gonna kinda like start with a couple experiments of this, and I'm gonna do a couple of this, and I'd love to," like, what are your thoughts on that? People like another thing I'll tell you is that people who are like like I will tell you what I've found. I've found that people who have not created and built things will be like, "Well, I will tell you why something won't work." And the more powerful and the more people are like creators and builders and like actually have capacity and yeah, like the more they're not like it's actually more of an indicator of a person's own capability to create in terms of what they tell you, what they think. Because it's like, in one example, the example that I just used is like, "Okay, we're gonna, are you gonna fuck up my buildings?" And then they were like, "Well, I want it like, I think this should be in hotels. I think this should go I think you should be doing deals with hotels. I think you should be doing deals with the Marriott. I wanna introduce you when you're ready." Because I said, "We're not ready yet. We're still kinda testing this out and having conversations with people." And that kind of thing. When people give you ideas versus just saying, "Yeah, I don't see that for you," they're telling you really a lot about themselves. And so, so sometimes one of the best things you can ask for is you can say, like, "Who do you think I should talk to? Who do you think I should be talking to?" And just keep following the thread. So every conversation that you have with, they say, like, "Who should I be talking with?" And then you say, "What's the best way to get an introduction?" And you just keep letting it do its thing and keep opening doors and keep having these conversations and keep, and I think one of the things and it's odd, this is at the end of this, but like the idea that the elevator pitch when it's in its formation resembles something more like what I just talked about, which is saying like, "Here's the thing I'm kind of working on right now. It's what we're doing." So and like so far we've done this and we've really seen some great stuff, but I just wonder if this resonates with you, kind of stuff. So, or what your thoughts are. Like, how do you respond to this? Like, even the thing of like, "Here's what we're doing. Do you think this is crazy? Do you think this is wild?" Because also that thing of saying like, do you think this is a really crazy idea? Um, people have a really hard time like, I mean, it's not that they won't, but in most it's really unnatural to be like, "Yes." It takes a lot of fortitude for somebody to go, "Yeah, no, I just think that's crazy." Like, you're actually twisting it, so it's a little bit of a forcing function to get somebody to actually kind of, like, be on your side. And also, like, from a power dynamic, you're giving them a chance to be of help to you, which people like. Okay, that's it for today. Thank you for watching. Gosh, look at my hair. It's really great. I really wanted to get on and do this, and it was like, listen, if I try to, like, make something happen with hair and makeup, it's never gonna happen. So here we are. Okay, I'm sending you a lot of love and appreciation, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.